If you have a weak mind, skip this video right now. The fact that you're still here isn't an accident. When you're told what to do, your brain experiences a sudden surge of resistance against having its freedom limited. This instinctive pushback, what some call revenge psychology, values defiance over the instruction itself. I told you to leave, and your mind immediately found a reason to stay. This reflex is well documented. For decades, politicians and corporate leaders had studied these triggers to ensure that your acts of rebellion or choice are actually calculated responses to the environment they've built around you. Dark psychology isn't about physical force. It's the practice of framing a situation so precisely that the other person arrives at the conclusion you wanted them to reach, believing the idea was their own. By identifying these specific cognitive vulnerabilities, you stop being the subject of the experiment. You begin to see the mechanical patterns behind every social interaction. The brain has a built-in defense mechanism for its own ego. It must feel in control. Direct commands trigger friction, but a perceived choice bypasses that resistance entirely. This is the strategy of the master of choice. You don't ask for a specific result. Instead, you offer two different paths that both lead to the same destination. If you ask a friend if they want to go out, they have to decide if they're tired or busy. But if you ask, should we get Pizza Hut or Domino's, their focus shifts to a comparison between two options. The larger decision, the choice to go out, is settled before they even realize it was on the table. Retailers apply this on a massive scale by flooding your visual field with a single brand. When your entire horizon is filled with rows of Tide, the question in your mind shifts from, do I need detergent, to which size box is the best value. By dominating the visual landscape, they narrow your field of choice until buying the product becomes the only logical conclusion. Once you make even a minor choice, a second vulnerability kicks in. The brain experiences a powerful internal drive to stay consistent with its previous actions, to avoid the discomfort of contradiction. This is the foot in the door technique. You start with a request so small it's easier to say yes than no, like asking to borrow a pen to finish a note. This small act of cooperation sets a behavioral precedent. Later, when you ask for a much larger favor, the target feels a psychological need to maintain their role as a helpful person. By anchoring that larger request to an urgent emotional problem, you make a refusal feel like an attack on their own character. Humans also have a deep-seated aversion to social silence. In a conversation, an empty gap feels like a problem that needs to be solved, and most people will compromise their own interests just to fill the air. You can use this by simply waiting. When someone finishes a sentence, hold eye contact for 3 seconds without saying a word. That silence creates a vacuum of pressure that forces the other person to keep talking, often revealing more than they intended just to break the tension. A person who can sit comfortably in that silence gains the upper hand. They gather information while the other person, feeling the weight of the quiet, begins to over-explain their position or offer concessions. When logic is bypassed by high-stakes feelings, the brain enters an emotional hijack. This is a state where reflexive responses like pride, fear, or guilt take priority over rational thought. Politicians utilize this by focusing on triggers that spark immediate anger or protective instincts. By the time the logical mind can evaluate the facts, the emotional reaction has already dictated the person's support. This happens in private interactions through the guilt trap. Instead of making an accusation, you describe how someone's actions affected you emotionally. You hold up a mirror to their behavior, and their own conscience forces them to try and make amends. Logic is the brain's slower, conscious layer. By provoking these faster reflexes, you occupy the executive system with immediate feeling, preventing a rational audit of the interaction until it's already over. The most subtle method of influence relies on our biological drive towards social synchronization. We are evolved to trust people who move and speak in ways that feel familiar. This is mirroring. When you subtly match a person's physical posture or the rhythm of their speech, you are speaking directly to their mirror neurons. These are the cells responsible for empathy and social bonding. As the two neural patterns begin to sync, the target's natural defenses against a stranger begin to lower. Their brain recognizes your behavior as familiar. creating a biological shortcut to trust that feels like a natural connection. You reinforce this by reflecting their own language. When you repeat their key phrases back to them with a slight delay, it signals that you are fully aligned with their perspective, encouraging them to open up further. In every interaction, the person speaking the most is providing the data, while the person observing is the one processing it. Restraint is power. The more you watch and the less you reveal, the more control you maintain over the room. Mastering these concepts provides a shield against the influence of others. Once you understand the mechanics of how the mind responds to pressure, choice, and silence, you are no longer a passenger in your own decisions. You see the patterns and you see the strings.